Hey everybody, this is Tulip, and I was hoping for something more in the vein of atomic warfare.
And this is Cassidy, and who better to make fun of than Nazis?
It has been a tough week, so
It has.
I just want to say to everybody
We
before we
we are
start,
actually recording on August 14th, so this is the weekend after Charlottesville.
yeah,
So we actually postponed this podcast a couple of times because we were having a little difficulty joking about Nazis over the weekend.
yeah, it feels a little off still, but
It does.
I just want to encourage people to love each other. And there's some GoFundMe's set up for people who got hurt in Charlottesville. The one for Heather Heyer's family, unfortunately, has closed, but it was a very well responded to GoFundMe.
Did you see that they were looking at naming the park after her?
I saw that someone put up a kind of a just a flippant sign. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
really hope
realize that
that
there
that
was
happens.
legitimacy behind that.
No, I didn't read that, but yeah, that somebody had put up the sign, the handwritten sign, and
Yeah, I
I,
shouldn't say
I,
flippant. I think it was well meant, but
yeah, just kind of impromptu, and somebody made a handmade sign, and I kind of hope that happens now.
yeah.
You know, I hope that becomes a beacon of light for people in such dark times.
Yeah, so the one white supremacist who was following preacher, bye-bye.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just being snarky. I
Oh,
mean,
okay, okay.
I feel like we're letting our lefty hang out.
I was like, did we block somebody on Facebook today?
No, no. And, I don't normally, I joke about getting political, but I do want to just say that it really is hard to joke about some of the themes in Preacher right now.
It
So,
is. I mean, it's very difficult subject matter already to kind of dance around sometimes and still maintain kind of a PG-13 rating.
right.
Uh, but, we do our best and just know that we probably have more in common with each other than not. So, we appreciate all of our listeners and, just like Dia said, be nice to each other.
Yep. And shout out to Colleen, my fellow minion. She said she's catching up on the gospel according to AMC's Preacher. So,
I
hello,
did see that
Colleen.
today. Hello, Colleen.
So, I'm going to go ahead and give my rating first.
Okay.
I have to say, and I know I've said this before, this is probably my least favorite episode of Preacher so far. So I'm giving it 3 out of 5 copies of the Da Vinci Code.
Ooh. Where did you get the rating from, the Da Vinci Code?
Well, because of the whole thing about the lineage of Christ and all of that. And the
Ah,
Grail.
okay.
So it wasn't really, they didn't make a particular reference to the Da Vinci Code, but that was totally where my head went.
Oh, that's funny. Um, mine's a little bit more comical than that.
Good.
I did not rate this as this was not my least favorite episode, but I kind of came up in my ratings because we saw the introduction of Hair Star. I rated it 3.5 ugly girls at a gangbang.
Oh! There were some pretty harsh lines in this episode.
So the line that I'm referring to is when Hair Star was talking to Sultan Stall, and he was saying, "So you're going to bring the world to its knees like an ugly girl at a gangbang looking for directions."
Right. There were some pretty horrible
That
lines in this
nearly
episode.
made me spit out my wine.
Yeah.
So, I was just like, oh my God, because I figured you would take the pig rating. I figured you would say whatever point, 5 flying pigs.
No, I was gonna actually take the penis rating, but I felt like I just couldn't quite go there with the episode.
Yeah, yeah. This, like I said, if anybody deserves their mocking, it's Nazis, and we got a lot of good material with Hair Star.
Oh
So
my God.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right. So the Nielsen ratings. Let's see. It actually had a better week this episode, which premiered on the 31st of July, than the previous week. So Live Plus same day was 1.25 million. And
Hmm.
I think our last one was around 1.14, 1.15. So it actually went up a little bit. It actually did rate in the top 25 for Live Plus 3 in the 18 to 49 group.
Oh, good.
It's still outgunned by Alien Sharks, mind you.
Come on, alien sharks.
On the Discovery Channel. And it did not make the overall top 25 Live Plus 3. So,
Okay,
but
now
it
I
did make.
actually
Oh,
I
go
actually
ahead.
want to go watch Alien Sharks just to find the draw.
Well, you can bring us a review of Alien Sharks the next time we podcast. How's that? Because I don't think I'm going to spend the time.
Oh, maybe I'll just go read the online synopsis of it.
There you go.
I have to know, are they alien or like
I don't know. I just keep seeing it on the top 25 for the week, and I'm like, really? Preacher can't get
makes
in the top 25, but Alien Sharks can. There is no
did
justice in this world.
so now I want to know if the Kardashians rate higher or lower than Alien Sharks.
I don't remember, honestly, but
Okay.
unfortunately, they do make the top 25, and Preacher does not, which again just tells me there's no justice in the world.
Not a whole lot.
So, the episode title, Pig, it obviously referred to the pig in Vietnam.
Right.
Did it refer to anything else?
I don't think so. I didn't notice anything
So I
of
looked at
value.
I looked at the symbolism of pig, and I'm not quite sure, but um, it's really interesting. So pig actually, according to one of the sites I looked at, represents the extremes of human joy, fear, celebration, ridicule, and repulsion.
Hmm.
Which I thought was really interesting. I don't really think of pigs that way. I think of them more, either we call people pigs when they're gluttons, or we say things like when pigs fly.
Well, and there's a whole big thing about pigs and religion, not Muslims and I think Jewish people are not allowed to eat pork, touch pork, things like that.
Correct.
And I was watching something today that was talking about totally off subject. Women have still in 2017 still going to menstruation huts
Oh my
in
God.
in third world countries, and how these practices that are written down in biblical text and that are culturally acceptable in a lot of places made sense thousands and thousands of years ago. I mean, if you don't cook pork well enough, you can get worms, you can get diseases, things like that. And hygienically, maybe it was better for women who are menstruating to be separate from the family. Things like that. Things made sense thousands and thousands of years ago
Okay,
to
I'm buying the first one. I'm not buying the second one.
kind of primitive men. But in 2017, times have changed, so we need to change with them. But so when I think of pigs in the Bible, I think of pork. So
Huh. Okay.
yeah.
Well, I'm not really sure what the point of it was, but I just thought I would ask if you thought there was something more.
No, and honestly, what's funny is the thing that also comes to mind is because we both live in Alaska. Pigs are actually these wire brush thingies that they put into the pipeline to
Oh, you're right. I totally
to clean
forgot
and
about
maintain the
that.
pipeline. So we have pipeline pigs here.
I have a quarter of a pig in my freezer. So, yeah. Anyway, I don't have anything more to say about the title.
Bacon is delicious.
We may be liberal, but we're not vegans.
No.
So I didn't have tons about the writer and director, but I had a little bit.
Okay.
So, gotta get to my notes.
Well, so the director was Wayne Yip. And he directs one more episode this season. But before that, he has been the director of 2 episodes of Doctor Who, an episode of Salem. These are all things that I watch.
Okay, go for it, because
and
you watch more than I do, so.
and then a show in the UK entitled Misfits, which we have talked about because Joseph Gilgun is on Misfits.
I was going to say, that's the link with Cassidy.
Yeah, so there's our tie-in right there. But he also has directed 4 episodes of a show called Secret Diary of a Call Girl. And I actually did not even know this was a show. It is based on I've read her blog. It's based on a sex worker. Yeah, it's based on a sex worker known as
I
Bella
knew it was
Thorne.
a show. I didn't know it was based on a person's blog.
Yes, she is a real person. She's a real sex worker. So I have read her blog before.
Oh, how very interesting.
And so I thought that was interesting. I didn't know that there was a show entitled that based on it. So, yeah, he's got a fairly full body of work for not even 10 years in the biz. So good on him.
Well, we have a crossover with our featured cast, but we'll go there in a minute.
Excellent.
So the writer is a woman named Olivia Dufault, and she was the story editor for 7 episodes of season 2. We've talked before about how a lot of the people who are serving as writers also are serving as story editors on episodes where they don't write.
Right.
She wrote this, and she wrote El Valero, which was episode 8 of season 1, and that's where they had the gun battle in front of the church.
Ah.
But it looks like she actually hasn't done a whole lot more than that. I didn't really find much else on her.
Yeah, no, it looks like her only writing credit is Preacher, so she's kind of a newbie.
And I'm not sure what that means. I mean, I feel like this episode was really uneven, and this was the first time that I honestly thought to myself, okay, this series is really uneven. It's the first time I've admitted that to myself, but I'm hoping that it's not her writing.
Well, and like we talked about before the show, I did go back and listen to one of our podcasts from season 1 because I was doing some additional research on some stuff, and we were talking about in that episode how, we started out in space, and then we started out in 1881, and then we flash forward to, Houston, and we were all over the map in season 1. So I think they're kind of doing a little bit of that here, with the flashback to Hair Star and, our modern day shenanigans. So.
Well, and I think I told you when we were watching this the first time, I'm ready to go back to hell.
I definitely want to go back to hell.
So I'm hoping that next episode is a trip back to hell.
Yeah, it doesn't show anything in the promos, and we are podcasting behind, but I do not watch ahead. So
I have not been watching ahead either. I've been conscientiously not watching ahead.
Yeah, so the next episode is entitled Holes, and Jesse investigates a clue about God, and Tulip makes friends with the new neighbor. And the promo for it that they showed was her patching the holes in the other apartments that the cowboy shot up.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Well, she did really looked at the hole in the fridge and seemed really disturbed by that. So that's kind of a lead there, huh?
Right. And so I don't know if we're going back to hell anytime soon. I didn't see any of that in the promo or the synopsis or anything. So, but you never know. I mean, we could totally jump around during that episode too. So I hold out hope that we will go to hell soon.
All right. It's been a bad week when you're looking forward to going back to hell. Okay, so featured cast, no big surprise. I picked Pip Torrens, who is the guy who was cast to play Helmut Star, Hair Star.
And hair in German just means Mr., basically. Yeah. So you kind of see, you see it like in movies about Germany and World War II and Nazis and things like that, where, it for me, It does have a little bit of a Nazi connotation to it, but it doesn't. It just means Mr. Frau means Miss or Mrs. So I had to get beyond that for myself.
That's funny. That just means you've watched too many episodes of Hogan's Heroes. All right, so back to Pip Torrens, another Brit.
Yes. Yes.
And apparently, I'm embarrassed to admit it, I haven't watched it yet. Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Apparently, he's got a role in that.
He does.
He was on Law and Order UK. I didn't even know there was a Law and Order UK.
I think if you just put random letters behind Law and Order, you get greenlit for a show.
That is so funny. He has been in a couple of Agatha Christie series that they do on PBS. He's been in Black Mirror, which I think you said you were watching.
Yes. So there are actually two Black Mirrors. There's Black Mirror from the UK, and then there's the American Black Mirror.
Okay,
and
I think he's probably been in the UK.
The UK one, exactly. Which both are very, very good. Like that was one show that the US didn't screw up from its source material.
That's funny, because they certainly messed up being human.
Yeah, and oh god, I can't remember the name of the one that one of the Doctor Who's was in. Yeah, I can't remember it.
Yeah, I can't either. So he was in Whitechapel, which I believe is about Jack the Ripper, and the actor who plays Dennis was also in that series. And his crossover is that he has been in Secret Diary of a Call Girl.
I did not catch that.
And in Doctor Who, so he's got that crossover with the director.
Interesting.
So it's always interesting to look back at those kinds of things.
It is. He has a long and illustrious career.
He does. His career starts in 1984, according to IMDb. And I just wanted to point out that he was in Tales from the Crypt, which is a crossover with Walking Dead.
Yep.
And he was also in Patriot Games, which was one of my favorite Harrison Ford movies. So there you go.
On AMC's website, if you go to the synopsis to the show, you can click on Hairstar's character, and they do have a Q&A with Pip Torrens about his character and things like that. It is only through this episode so far, so it was the episode where we were pretty much introduced to Hairstar, and so they don't give anything away for future episodes. But it not as interesting as many of the Q&As, but yeah, it had some interesting stuff in it. I guess the piercings that he wears.
I was just gonna ask that. I'm not kidding you. I was totally going there.
So they are not just faux piercings,
but
they are prosthetic nipples, which I was totally shocked at, because if you go back and rewatch like I did and look for it, he has very tiny nipples.
That is bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I guess it's probably even more bizarre that was where my brain was going, and that was what you decided to say. We truly are kindred spirits.
We are. This is us, yeah.
Well, so they did kind of a Michonne thing with him, another Walking Dead reference. So they actually had someone different playing him in the little bit that they showed him last season, because his character is the character who gave those plans.
Okay, that was the callback that I wasn't sure if you got.
Well, I didn't necessarily. I did it when I did a little reading about Hairstar today and realized that was where we had actually seen him there, but they had someone different playing him, and they cast Pip Torrens this season because he was going to have a much expanded role.
Right. So it's funny how in his Q&A they said that he looks so much like his character in the graphic novel that they asked him, was that planning on the creator's part, when they cast him, or was that just a happy accident? And it sounds like when they were going for casting his character, he was the only guy they were gonna call.
Oh, that is really funny.
They had seen his Sam Caitlin had seen The Crown, which he is in, and he has long hair and a mustache, and they thought that they were going to have to like make him shave his mustache and everything. Little did they know that it's a wig and a fake mustache, and that he normally is bald and clean shaven. So when they actually Google imaged his name, and saw that he looks so dead on for the character of Harry Starr that it could only be him.
Can't unsee it.
Yep. Yep. So it's a good thing he agreed to do it.
Yeah, so welcome, Pip Torrens.
Yep.
I'm not quite sure where we're going with you, but welcome. Even if you are a creepy Nazi. So what was your gospel? What was your good?
So I really liked the Hurt Locker.
Oh my God, that was my good too.
So there were two kind of minor scenes in the Hurt Locker that I really, really liked. I liked the scene where they're playing the guys and Tulip kisses Cassidy, and the look on Cassidy's face after, like, for a second there, you almost forget that, like, he's heartbroken.
Okay, that was totally real for Cassidy.
Yeah.
And my husband actually said, God, she's really messing that poor guy up.
She is, because, he just, the look on his face, it was great acting on Gilligan's part that, that it just, it made me smile, like that it was like a genuine smile on his part. And then when Tulip and Jesse are talking later at the bar.
And Jesse's like, uh-huh.
Well, and that they have a moment and they laugh.
Oh, I love that, where she was repeating his words.
Yes. And it was just a goofy, because like mom and dad have been fighting this whole time. And, we're dealing with some serious subject matter and everything. And there was just a really great moment of levity in the middle of it. So it was nice to get that. So that was
mine was pretty similar. You actually encompassed my good and my bad, so I'll do both of them. So my good was the fake out at the Hurt Locker. I loved the way they faked those guys out. I thought it was really funny.
For a second there, I thought Jesse was being so holier than thou about, the game being ungodly and everything. But they all fell right into character for taking those guys' money.
They did. It was perfect.
It was great.
So I really enjoyed that. And then kind of going into my Job, it was feeling so bad for Cass, because I agree. I think that they really manipulated him, and I think Tulip knows how much that hurts him. Jesse doesn't really know yet, but I do think Tulip was messing with him a bit.
Yeah.
And I felt like the kiss was genuine, and I felt like the I love you was genuine, and, it was only genuine on Cass's part.
Right. And, I don't know if Tulip just expects him to be over it, or if she's so over it that she expects him to be over it, or if she's just that flippant with his feelings, I
think she's just that hard.
Yeah.
I don't even know that it's flippant with his feelings. I just think that she's so calloused.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It hurts the heart, because Cassidy's such a great character.
Yeah.
And a great guy. So you went into your bad. I will go into my bad. The nightmare that Tulip has.
Oh, yeah.
So have you ever had one of those nightmares where you're in a nightmare and you wake up and you're actually still in the nightmare?
I actually fortunately have not.
Okay, I have. I was probably preteen, maybe early teen, and I had a really terrible nightmare about like a kind of a ghost or a poltergeist hovering over my bed. And I woke up and it was gone and I was relieved, but then it was there again. And I woke up, and this happened like 3 or 4 times before I woke up for real. And to wake up for real and to wait there for your nightmare to reappear is just terrifying. Like, am I really asleep? Am I awake? Like, you just, there's a loss of control, and there's a feeling of dread. And it's really horrible to have one of those where you can't wake up from your nightmare and you just keep repeatedly waking up in the nightmare. And so that just, it was very chilling for me. And, I was thinking about it on the rewatch. I don't know if there was only one other person that we know of that survived the cowboy's touch, and that's the little girl, Victor's daughter.
And we don't know what happened to her.
Yeah, and we don't know what happened to her, but apparently being touched by the cowboy is very, very chilling down to your soul. So it's really rattled Tulip, and I kind of feel for her that she's, going through whatever she's going through, because it looks pretty horrifying.
Well, I would just like to pin you down on this poltergeist thing. So how do you know that it wasn't truly a nightmare that you woke up from and the poltergeist was there? Because we lived in that frickin' freaky house on Long Run Drive, and I swear to God, there was a poltergeist there.
So for those of you who don't kind of know, like, the vernacular, a poltergeist is actually not a ghost or a spirit. It was not once a human being.
Well, it depends. It depends on whose take on poltergeists you take. Some people say it's a ghost, and some people say it's an energy manifested by a troubled young person.
Right. It's negative thoughts and energy that manifests. And so this was actually in a house later, but yes, I do remember the house on Long Run having that feeling of something chasing you down the hallway. And
yes, I totally have chills going up my spine right now.
Yeah. And there was a lot of times throughout, and in the place that I did have the nightmare, I do believe that and call me crazy, I'm an atheist who believes in poltergeists.
So I'm going to tell you something that I don't know that I've ever told anybody, but I actually had a mug levitate and spin in that house on Long Run.
Oh my God, that is so creepy.
Yeah.
So we used to have the TV would come on at certain times through the night and flip through the channels and then just go off. And you could call that interference. Maybe the neighbors had the same TV on the same, wavelength, and they had their remote sitting on the remote or whatever. But, there was always a very negative presence. There was always a very malevolent presence in that house. And so, yeah.
I just want to tell you, I'm probably not going to sleep tonight. I mean, so creepy. So creepy.
Well, we have a lot more things to fear than poltergeist nowadays.
Right, North Korea. So.
Or Nazis. So yeah, that was my bad. I really feel bad for Tulip and what she's going through.
Well, so what was your revelation?
Okay, so I take you back in the way back machine to season 1, episode 3. Promises. One of those. We are first introduced to Danny in Houston, and she is the map that Tulip gets. Tulip nearly died getting this map. Remember, we were introduced to Tulip fighting a guy in her car and plowing through the cornfield and everything.
And killing him with a corn cob.
Right. All for this map. And the map is, and like I went back and listened to the podcast we did, and I said it looked like a blueprint.
It did look like a blueprint.
But it was property of Grail Industries.
Oh!
Yes.
Well done indeed.
Yes. So, Tulip gives Danny the map. Danny gives Tulip Carlos's last known address, and we've dealt with the whole Carlos issue at this point. We're assuming he either got away or he perished in Anvil. But so when Danny takes the map to the Houston's 4th annual Snuff Film Festival,
which is a perfect place to meet Hairstar.
yes. So she hands it to a man in a white suit and white hat.
Yes.
And she said, I told you my girl was good. And he dismisses her with a flick of his hand and puts the map into his coat pocket and walks away. And so we have seen Hairstar before, and we have heard of Grail Industries before.
Okay, so now my question is, do you think that map was a map of the place where the bloodline is kept?
Yes, absolutely.
Interesting.
Yes. I believe that Hairstar did whatever it took to get into Grail Industries, not even knowing, what was there. It was just a continuation of his kind of end game. He wants to cleanse the earth of the undesirables, basically. And, he was hoping for nuclear proliferation.
Right.
But, this seems just as good. So, he literally killed his way to the top. I mean, he threw Saltonstall off of the balcony and appointed himself as whatever position Saltonstall had. And, now he's on a mission to find whatever is in that map.
Okay, so the other question I have for you is, are they the men in white?
Yes, because...
Okay, that's what I thought too.
Yeah, they even said that he was the some kind of sect of Grail Industries. It started with an S, and I'm trying to find it. Yeah, I can't find it. Samson. It was the Samson division of Grail Industries.
Oh, I missed that completely. And so then when you think about Samson and Delilah, Samson was the strong man.
Right.
Be interesting to go there.
So the Samson unit handles false prophets.
Like the pig that people in Vietnam are now praying to. Like
exactly.
John Belushi.
I know, that was funny. That was funny. So, and if I remember right, isn't Samson the unit that the lady that Jesse rescued? Wasn't she part of the Samson unit?
I don't remember. I mean, I remember that she was part of the whole Men in White thing, but I don't remember a specific reference to Samson. So we'll find out.
Okay.
Or maybe you'll go back and rewatch.
Yes, I actually went back and because it's like in the first 5 minutes of episode 3 in season 1. And going back, there is no episode 0, so it's episode 3. The pilot is episode 1. Like we went through that whole thing where we couldn't figure out if it's episode 1 or 2 or 2 or 3. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. And I've just taken to calling them by their names.
Yes. There you go. There you go. So yeah, that was mine was the callback to way back in episode 1, Grail Industries.
Totally missed the whole Grail Industries reference. That is so cool. Well, mine was pretty simple, but it was Dennis is dying. Is Cassidy going to turn him?
And I was going to ask you, would you?
I probably would.
Me too. Dennis made the comment, he was talking that he was a bad father, and, he was dying, and there was one thing that he could do, and yeah. I think I would. Maybe out of guilt, maybe because I didn't want to lose my seemingly only son, you know?
Which we
Yeah,
still don't quite know how that all worked, but hopefully we'll get an
right.
explanation. So
Well,
he actually says in French something about "you can save me." Salve is save. I
okay.
caught that before the guy from Tulane started translating.
Um, yeah, so
Yeah, I don't know. I think Cass is going to turn him.
you think so?
I do. I'll be very surprised if he does not.
I think I would too. Yeah. Sorry, now I'm looking up damsels to see if I can find a reference to Samson.
I think you may actually have to watch it.
No. Laura goes
Oh.
into a white van and removes her wig. She tells the driver that Jesse's power is real and orders him to send Jesse's case up to the Samson unit.
Well, there you go.
So she's not part of the Samson unit, but she sent Jesse's case to the Samson unit.
Which makes sense because that's Hair Star, and he's investigating and doing away with false prophets.
Yep, and
And
that was his next call.
okay,
Yeah. So,
interesting. But okay, we may as well get into our word. So I did a little bit of reading, a little bit of peeping at Hair Star, and I ran into an article that said, if I can find my notes. So he is the, quote, sacred executioner, the sword of the Allfather. And apparently, according to the little article that I looked at, he and Jesse are very intertwined and they're very much similar characters.
really?
So it makes me wonder, is there some sort of blood relationship? Are they both like part of the lineage of Christ?
Yeah, I don't know.
It makes me wonder, and neither one of us has gotten that far in the comic books, so we don't really know.
Yeah.
But apparently,
That's
he has quite a big role in the comics.
interesting. So we've dealt with a cowboy for now, but now we have Hair Star to deal with.
Well, and I think we're going to see the cowboy again pretty quickly.
You think so?
I do. I
I was totally faked out with her waking up in the dream and then having the cowboy appear again.
right. You thought
I
that
was
he
to-
had found his way out.
Yeah, I thought he was back already.
I was a little faked out, but I pretty quickly realized that it wasn't. That it was just a dream.
Yeah, I was faked out for a while.
That's because of the poltergeist.
I saw a meme the other day that totally fit you and I. It was, and now I have to go read too much into things.
That's funny. And that's very accurate.
It is. It is.
So what else have you got in your word?
So, I knew I had heard it because they only refer to Saltonstall. I'm assuming by his family name, Saltonstall. They didn't give him a first name. Even on IMDb, he's not listed with a first name. And I knew that I had heard that before, but I couldn't remember where. Apparently, the Saltonstall family is part of the Boston elite that came over, their family came over on the Mayflower, and some of the family's claim to fame is that they have had a family member attend Harvard University every generation since Nathaniel Saltonstall. They were mentioned. One of the judges in the Salem witch trials was a Saltonstall.
Oh, that's interesting.
And let's see, there was a Saltonstall that was a mayor of London. there was, like I said, a judge at the Salem witch trials, a governor of Connecticut, commander at Penobscot expedition.
Penobscot?
Yeah, that.
Yeah, that.
A U.S. representative, a governor of Massachusetts, a senator of Massachusetts, and there are 2 politicians, I think, who are currently they're just listed as quote unquote politician. I don't know.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So, and it's funny in the wiki for the family. This legacy, the legacy of all of them attending Harvard University was abruptly ended by preacher showrunner Ephron Sam Saltonstall Caitlin in 1989.
Whoa!
So a preacher was the one who broke the whole "we're all educated at Harvard."
Well, and say his name again?
Saltonstall.
No, say the whole name.
Oh, Ephron, quote unquote, Sam Saltonstall Catlin.
Okay, who is Sam Catlin?
I don't know.
He's one of the writers.
Oh my goodness!
That just seems too convenient.
Yeah, that. Now I've got chills. Hold on, I have to go overthink this.
Oh my god.
So I thought that was super interesting because I was like, I had heard this name Saltonstall, and I think it was in relation to the Salem witch trials.
Well, now you have to wiki Sam Catlin.
Oh goodness. Okay.
I'm actually knitting while we talk, so I don't have hands free to wiki Sam Catlin.
And for some reason, the Google is being very, very slow tonight.
The Google.
So you said you had numbers.
I do, but I'm not quite ready to go to the numbers yet, which means I actually probably have to put my knitting down and get back to my notes.
Yeah. I think you gotta.
So I just laughed a little bit at the carts that were picking up the drunks in New Orleans, because when you got the view of their little license plates, one said dead, the other said drunk.
And we knew that like once Cassidy, he was totally going to be picked up as dead. Like, I just knew it.
And that looked like a really good bottle of Armagnac. So.
Oh my goodness, Sam Callan is one of the writers.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. I told you.
Oh my
but
goodness.
But is it actually Sam Saltonstall Catlin?
No, it's just Sam Catlin.
Right.
But that is just a strange connection.
It is a strange connection, and it probably is. Well, I mean, it's not. That's just weird.
Yeah.
That's just weird. Are you sure it's not the same dude?
No.
What year did the person break the tradition of going to Harvard?
1989.
That would be right. That would be right about the right time.
I don't think Sam Catlin went to seminary school, though.
Well,
I don't think he was a preacher.
You're probably right. He probably didn't go to seminary school. But the whole thing is weird.
That is very... Yeah.
Ruthie, help us out.
There is a strange symmetry to this whole thing. The more and more I find these things, the more and more that I'm convinced that we are living in the Matrix, and these are just weird little glitches in programming.
Either that, or there's this whole massive conspiracy with reptilian overlords.
Well, I did watch The Dark Tower this weekend.
Oh, how was it?
Tower. So, I went with my other half, who is kind of a book nerd. I mean, he's a big book nerd, but he hasn't read very many Stephen King novels. And then I went with somebody who has like read everything that Stephen King has ever done. So of course he was going to be very critical of the movie. And he enjoyed the movie, but like any other movie that comes with source material, you can't put the whole thing in the movie. And the
Sure.
movie tells a very, very infinitesimal part of the Stephen King universe. And apparently, like, as far as we can tell, most, if not all, of Stephen King's books are interrelated in this universe. And
Oh, how interesting.
the Dark Tower is actually the kind of thing that holds the darkness back from our multiverse. And like in the book and the show and the movie, The Mist is one of the times the military's Arrowhead project pierced through the dimensions, and that's how all of these creatures came into our world. And so it really, really makes me want to go read all 5,000 pages of Stephen King books.
Yeah, you're giving me chills again, but...
Right, yeah. And so it was funny, like, my friend who is the Stephen King fanatic, he and I were talking, and I was like, this is exactly why I love, like, Walking Dead and Preacher and everything, is because there are so many callbacks and interconnections and little things that you can pick up on that's like, oh, that's from that thing, like, 3 books ago, you know? So it really, really interested me that, and I had no idea that they were all interconnected until I actually saw a little Looper video on Facebook about some of the things that you can pick out in Dark Tower that are callbacks to other Stephen King's novels like Cujo and It. And
I honestly did not know that, and I've read a number of Stephen King books, but I haven't read the Gunslinger series.
Yeah. So my other half picked up the Gunslinger series, and I guess that there's like 8 books that deal with like the Gunslinger and the Dark Tower and everything.
Well, I finally broke down and put it on my Audible account, so...
I really need to get that. Like, I feel that I don't read enough, so I need to have somebody read to me.
It's good for driving.
Yes, which I don't do much of because it takes me 15 minutes to get to work.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, but so there was a reptilian overlord reference, and then you started talking about Dark Tower. Were you more just talking about the whole idea of like a massive conspiracy or everything being interlinked or part of the Matrix, or
just that, like, Sam Catlin and then this other guy from the Saltonstall family,
right.
Like, that's just weird.
And it's not like Sam Catlin hasn't had that name his whole life, right? Or maybe he
Right.
hasn't.
I don't know. Like, I'm gonna have to do some like 4chan and Reddit deep dive on this guy.
You are a man.
So you had some notes.
Speaking of references, so The Hurt Locker is Catherine Bigelow's movie about weapons techs in Iraq.
Right.
Just so happens that Catherine Bigelow is coming out with another movie, and it was advertised during Preacher, so I thought it was just an interesting little coincidence that place was called The Hurt Locker.
Was it coincidence? I mean,
no, I don't think it was.
Yeah, they didn't have to name it Hurt Locker unless it was probably in the comic,
I think it was a nod to Catherine Bigelow.
Yeah. And what an appropriate name for that bar, you know? Let's shoot each other in the bulletproof vest and see how quickly we can get up.
Well, and then to have it be kind of part of Tulip's healing at the end.
Yes.
I loved it when she stood up and she was like, again.
Yeah. And I love that she went back and told them that they had been scammed, and she's like, you want to win your money back? Yeah. I wrote down next to that in my notes, I wrote down immersion therapy.
Exactly.
She just had to face it, I mean, literally. Yeah.
So it will be interesting to see if that makes the difference for her.
Looking at the little sneak preview of next week's episode, I don't think it does. I think it helps, but I think I kind of feel like she'll either always be haunted by it, or she'll be haunted until he is truly back in hell, because maybe she can feel that he is not gone.
And I was really ticked at Jesse for
lying.
He didn't even lie. He just kind
lie
of
by
blew past
omission.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, lie by omission.
That's
It's
totally
still a
what it
lie.
was. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
What else?
I love the little smile that Hair Star had when him and the other guys are being electrocuted.
Okay.
The one guy's screaming in pain and the other one's grinning and bearing it, and Hair Star is just like, it tickles a little.
So apparently Hairstar is a bit of a sexual deviant. That
Yes.
was one of the other things that I read in the article that was about his character's introduction.
Well,
So,
he was under the impression that there would be
women.
women.
Ukrainian women.
Ukrainian runaways.
Ew.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love do you validate parking?
Yes.
He had so many good lines this episode. I mean, some of them were creepy and some of them were just downright funny.
Well,
I mean,
and the classic, like a 10-inch D, I'd have to see it to believe it.
and I loved how when he pulled down his pants to distract the guy he was wrestling, that like nobody called him out on it. It was great. It was like, distracting your enemy, even in an unconventional way, can be used to your advantage.
Yeah, Hairstar is just one messed up Nazi.
Yeah. Are there any non-messed up Nazis?
Good point.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I'm thinking not.
we were talking about how Hitler seemed to be kind of a sympathetic character in hell, so,
Yeah, that's kind of a tough conversation to have now.
Yeah, I was actually, you don't hear a lot about Hitler prior to, and I had no idea that he served like 6 months in prison, and that's where he wrote the book of Mein Kampf.
Oh yeah.
Which translates to My Struggle. And that he served 6 months when everyone else that was with him for the thing he got arrested for, which I'm blanking on now.
It was the beer hall putsch, wasn't it?
Yes, that. They all got like 5 years or something. He was the only one. He got 6 months. So
somebody completely messed up by not giving him 5 years.
Well, yeah, and so it kind of made me want to do a deep dive history into Hitler before World War II, because it kind of pertains to Preacher. So I don't know if I've got time for that. I don't know if I feel like researching Nazis right now, though.
Yeah, this week I am dedicating to not a lot of news and to a lot of Buddhism. So.
Yeah. And trying not to stab people with knitting needles.
Right, exactly. Which is why I leave them at home. I don't travel with them. It's harder to stab someone with a crochet hook. Oh, let's see. One of the other things I really liked was Jesse and the street preacher. And do you kind of wonder if maybe the street preacher isn't somebody like actually God or Christ, or do you think he's just another charlatan?
At first you think of him as a charlatan, and I really liked when he went into the whole, I'm not trying to scare people. People are scared already. I'm just trying, I forget what he said, but, people are scared already. And I was like, ain't that the truth, I love it. He's like, I got a car payment and a drinking habit, so...
I also loved when he talked about real Wrath of God stuff, because he made a reference to Tom Cruise exploding.
Yes.
He made a reference to our current election, or the outcome of our recent election, and he made a reference to the flying pig and called it all real Wrath of God stuff.
Right. And poor Tom Cruise. He I
don't have any pity for Tom Cruise.
You did see that he was injured on the set of MI6 recently.
Oh, darn.
Yeah, dude, you're like in your 50s. Stop doing your own stunts. We get it. Like, but, you're 50. Let the younger guys, handle a few of the stunts. Stop trying to prove something.
I'm getting close to 50, so I might have to take exception at those words. Them's fighting words.
Yeah, the stunt that it looked like that he was doing was like jumping from a helicopter onto the roof of a building, and it like the helicopter was like hovering 10 feet away from the, like it was not like,
Well, and I can tell you that even at 44, I didn't bounce very well. So knock it off, Tom Cruise.
Jeez, my dog pulled me on their leash,
Oh,
and
jeez.
I've had a migraine for like a week, and I had to go to the chiropractor today. So, and I'm not, I'm only getting close to 40. So, you got nothing to prove, Tom Cruise.
Okay, the last thing that I wanted to bring up about the episode, and then we can go into the numbers, is did you catch the little reference about Stephen Hawking?
I didn't.
Prepare the invalid scientist. And then at the very end, whose voice is talking about the toxic water that killed the village and made the pig fly?
I wondered.
It's Stephen Hawking. I mean, it's supposed to be Stephen Hawking.
I wonder. I'm like, why does that?
Yes.
Is that like a really bad translation app?
The meat balloon.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I did not catch that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so Preacher continues its horribly irreverent streak.
Good catch.
So I found some numbers, but I don't know that that they were really useful numbers. So
Okay.
Do you want to start us out with Marnell's numerology?
So, did you catch all of the odds on the guns?
I did, and and I looked up a few of those as biblical verses.
Okay, I did too. There was 10 to 1, 30 to 1, 50 to 1, 75 to 1, and 100 to 1.
Was there 25 to 1?
I didn't see that.
I think there was also 25 to 1 because I wrote down 25 to 1, 100 to 1, 50 to 1.
Okay. The guns, there were the two guns that they had sitting next to the money box were both 30 to 1, and then they also flashed on another gun. The gun that was used to shoot the first guy was 30 to 1.
Which, by the way, was the gun that they pulled out for Cassidy a Colt Python. Just saying.
What's the gun that Dirty Harry uses?
Oh, I don't know, but it wasn't a Colt Python if it was Dirty Harry's gun.
Yeah, I think it was the Dirty Harry gun that kicks like a mule. I mean, it's like stupid big.
Okay. Anyway, sorry, going back to your numbers.
So the 30 to 1 kept coming up, and I couldn't find a whole lot of reference to the other numbers. But the Psalms 30, I will exalt you, Lord, for you lifted me out of the depths and did not let my enemies gloat over me. And I just, the guys, who are counting down and trying to win the money and hoping that the guy doesn't, stand up and everything.
That seems pretty appropriate.
Yeah, that seemed appropriate. And then, and this is all the, chapter 30, verse 1. Right. I didn't go into like verse 2 or 3. 30 to 1. So, Proverbs 30, verse 1, the sayings of Agur, son of Jakkai, an inspired utterance, this man's utterance unto Ithiel, I am weary, God, but I can prevail.
That also seems appropriate.
Again, the dude standing up. And then Deuteronomy 30 is the prosperity after turning to the Lord. And that just made me think of Jesse and company hustling these guys and getting the money from the betting box.
That's super funny.
Prosperity after turning to the Lord. So those 30 to 1 seemed to be the one that kept resounding. And so I found it in 3 different spots in the Bible that it kind of had a little funny haha moment to all of the shooting of the people in the chest.
Well, I don't know if 25 to 1 was actually one of the numbers. I thought it was. And it was...
And it definitely could have been, because I did see a 75 to 1, so...
And maybe I'm thinking of 75 to 1, because I was kind of rapidly writing them down the second time I watched. But 25 to 1, so there is Isaiah chapter 25, verse 1. It's another... So a lot of these are about exalting God and praising God's name, which I thought was kind of interesting because all of the things that I pulled up with the odds
Hmm.
were things about speaking and summoning and praising, and I just thought it was interesting in reference to the word in Genesis and being able to control things through speech.
Right.
But the other thing is so Isaiah 25:1, Lord, you are my God, I will exalt and praise your name forever. And then one of the interpretations that I found that went along with that was God will swallow up death forever, which
Ooh.
I thought was kind of a cool interpretation going along with Cassidy and with the Hurt Locker and kind of that whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Huh. Wow. Um, so the when Jesse and the street preacher were
Yes,
sitting down in that alley, did you see the
I
2607?
did. Did you find
Okay.
anything about it? Because I found this weird reference to like the lexicon, the Greek lexicon that was used in the
Okay.
Bible.
That's what I found.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kataginosko? I don't know if
Sure.
I'm saying it right. But it translates to blame or to accuse.
Yeah, I condemn or blame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, and the I condemn thing. They were talking about whether or not the street preacher thought selling of even fractions of souls was a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't. So, is Jesse condemned?
Well, and I think it just goes to the broader idea of condemning and praising and blaming and exalting, and I mean it just kind of the whole theme of the show,
Yeah.
you know. So I
Yeah.
thought that was kind of cool, and I don't know if it was intentional, but that was the only thing I could find.
Yeah. The other numbers were on the voltage meter that the guys were sitting on when Hair Star was going through his
Oh,
trials.
I saw those numbers and I missed them completely.
So they were in increments of 4, beginning with 8, and it looked like the voltage meter was topping out at 16 when Hair Star had that cheeky little smile on his face.
Well, so what's really interesting is that you just said increments of 4, and Hair Star was 4 when he was orphaned. So 4 was a number that I wrote down.
Oh, that's
But
interesting.
go ahead.
Yeah, it started out at 8, 12, and 16, I believe. Oh, it actually 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. So it increments of 2, starting at 8, ending at 16. And the only thing I could find kind of was John 16. All this I have told you so that you will not fall away. They will put you out of the synagogue. In fact, the time is coming when anyone who kills you will think they are offering a service to God. They will do such things because they have not known the Father or me. I have told you this so that when their time comes, you will remember that I warned you about them. I did not tell you this from the beginning because I was with you, but now I know I am going to see him who sent me. Um, and it goes on from there, but it kind of talks about killing in the name of God and not really, doing it for the wrong reasons and not really knowing God or the Father. So that kind of,
That's Grail Industries, man.
yeah, that kind of resonates with the whole, um, yeah, the whole Grail Industries and not knowing God. I mean, we were fooled with the actor for a time. Um, yeah, and doing things in his name without not really knowing God. So, yeah, that was all I could find for that.
Well, so the number 4, I might as well go into that. So 4 is a number of creation. It's creation of the material universe, and on day 4, God created the sun, the moon, and the stars. And the importance of that is that it separates night from day, allows us to demarcate time, which I'll go into the whole time thing in a minute. But here's the interesting thing. So 2004 is the year that Hairstar got involved with um, with the Grail Industries.
Okay.
The year 2004, according to this Bible Doctrine News site that I ran across, demonstrates the weakness of man in need of salvation and God's grace, and the weakness of earth being dependent on God's creation, which goes back to the God's creation of the earth is dependent on the sun, the moon, and the stars for light and for separating night from day and for giving us a way to count time. So 2004 and 4 were significant that way, which I thought was kind of weird.
Interesting.
And so the other thing that we saw was lots and lots of clocks.
Yes, I didn't bother getting the times off of those, but I thought that those might be significant also.
So the thing that I read about the symbolism of clocks is that life is divided into phases, just like clocks are. And just like everything starts on a clock and ends up back at the same place, the significance is that there's a beginning and an ending to everything. The other thing, though, that was kind of interesting, and this was a little bit opposite, is that Joseph Campbell, the great writer about myth and kind of archetypes, he said that life is eternal, and clocks are a reminder of our eternal nature because they renew over and over again.
I like that.
Yeah, so I thought that was really interesting, and I do think that clocks were significant. And it goes back into the whole being able to tell the difference between night and day, the sun, the moon, and the stars. I mean, I just thought that whole relationship was very interesting.
Well, and Hair Star,
Right, the sun,
you
the
know,
moon, and the stars, hair star. Jesse's got that star on his back.
and we talk about, Lucifer Morning Star,
Right.
and there were multiple morning stars in the Bible. And also, for some reason, and I'm going to be totally wrong on this, I hearken back to when we were in hell and the female guard was basically like, they were talking about, has anyone told him yet,
Right.
And
Lucifer.
and I'm like, okay, Hair Star can't be Lucifer, can he? Like I don't think he would be. Would he be, getting himself into this Grail Industries and everything?
I'm not going to write it off. It could totally go there.
Maybe so he can find the long lost relative of Jesus. So,
And totally bring about Armageddon with that.
Yeah.
And therefore win.
Yeah. So
yeah, I don't know. We're overthinking it again, right? Let me go overthink this.
Hold on, I have to go overthink this.
One more number, and this number didn't come up in this episode, but we've been talking again and again about finding out Eugene's number.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back and I found out, and his number is 25, which number 25, according to a couple of different sites that I looked at, one is that it represents grace upon grace, which I think is appropriate when you think about Eugene, like not really belonging in hell.
Absolutely, yes.
And the other thing is that 25 represents repentance and the forgiveness of sins, which also seems very appropriate for Eugene.
Yeah, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that was meant to be.
I really think that, someone from Preacher needs to give us an interview about the numbers. Don't you?
I do. We should be on Talking Preacher.
That's right.
Yeah.
We'll just put a little buzz in Chris Hardwick's ear.
That means I have to start a Twitter account to get a hold of him. I can't start a Twitter account because I can't think of a clever name. So my name on YouTube, actually, I was able to get your clever name here.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
As my screen name on YouTube. So I was like, I'm never going to get that with Twitter. So I have to figure out a clever name for Twitter.
Well, mine isn't clever, but I do use it to troll certain politicians.
Yeah, I kind of wanted mine to be a little bit anonymous so that I can complain about like coworkers and stuff that are on my Facebook.
That's funny. Well,
So,
I don't think I have anything else. And for this being my least favorite episode, once again, we went over an hour.
yay us! And we didn't even like get too bogged down in horrible Nazi stuff.
We didn't.
No, no.
Well, little sister,
till the end of the world.
till the end of the world.
Hopefully, it's later rather than sooner.
Right. All right, everybody, have a good week.
Bye.
I left his body in the woods, and I took off running south. I left his body in the woods, and I took